Thanks very much for that. Yeah, it's great to be speaking at SAEMC. It's certainly my favourite place to be, being a proud South Australian, and catching up with a lot of people that you used to work with is always a delight. So I'll just start off with introducing who Hamelin Gully is. So we're a privately held company, we're proudly South Australian, and the ownership and management team have got a track record of successfully transitioning discoveries into production across Australia. Hamelin Gully's got the ambition of building a South Australian mining house where your technical, your management and financial teams are South Australian based for the long term, and we really want to see the benefits of mining in South Australia stay in South Australia. And we feel that the projects that I'll talk about today really has the potential to facilitate that ambition. So speaking about the Nackara Arc, it's an area that's had extensive historic mining, primarily focused on gold in the past. Obviously there's a lot of iron ore exploration going on at the moment, but 200,000 ounces of gold was mined historically across multiple gold fields. And that production history was really focused on high-grade quartz veins related to structures. There was some sporadic strata-bound gold exploration that hasn't really been progressed in a contemporary aspect, and I think that some of the limitations of the gold exploration across the Nackara Arc's really been these narrow vein deposits that aren't stacked, really probably being a bit intimidating from an economic perspective. The potential for vein density mapping and alteration mapping through the arc in a systematic process, I think, would be a really good project to add value and add to that exploration potential for that region. So more locally on the Hamelin Gully ground, I'd like to speak about the Wadnaminga goldfields. So that had a high-grade gold history, about 3.5 kilometres of strike extent with 25,000 ounces of gold produced. And adjacent to the Wadnaminga goldfields to the east was the Taltabuka goldfields, where there was some high-grade historic mining, but drilling done by Battle Mountain in the late 1980s indicated that there was broad low-grade gold mineralisation that was looked like it had a Carlin-type mineralisation based on thin section work and geochemistry. The other interesting thing to note out there is that there's potassic fluid alteration and geophysical signatures that suggest that there might be a deeper porphyry system that contributes to that gold mineralisation at Taltabuka. So one of the really important things to note, obviously it's important to talk about, but probably not news to anybody, is that early stage exploration's got a pretty high chance of failure, and we need to do everything in our power to make sure that we're de-risking this early stage exploration. So Hamelin Gully was basically waiting for the native title determination of the Willy Kali to get cleared. So that was formalised late last year, and since then we've gone out and done a couple of Aboriginal cultural heritage clearances to facilitate drilling this year and going forward. And we found that the relationship with them has been really positive so far, so that's been great. And we've been working with the stakeholders that have been obviously the pastoral leaseholders and other people in the local area to make sure that they understand what we're doing and we can align our interests with what they're doing to make sure that everyone's getting a mutually beneficial outcome. From a technical perspective, we've been going through a lot of the historic data documentation. So a lot of that's obviously captured on SARIG, and that's a fantastic resource that obviously adds a lot of value to the state. But we're also finding that there's a lot of historic data that isn't captured within SARIG. So speaking to former people that worked on the project, we've been able to identify additional information to help progress our exploration. And where we've got gaps in that exploration information, we've been going out and doing some early, low-cost, low-impact sampling, reconnaissance, and a bit of data analysis. So one of the interesting comments previously was obviously the difficulty of exploring undercover. Great thing about out here is we've got an abundance of outcrop, which obviously as a geologist is really nice to go and have a look at. So when I started working on the project, we started looking at some hyperspectral imagery. So I basically processed some Sentinel data using AI to help me understand the process. So enough to be dangerous, probably not enough to be good. But what we're seeing at the Netley Hill and Anabama Hill, those bright pink areas are really showing up our porphyry prospectivity that was known. So we wanted to see whether we were missing anything obvious, a bit of low-hanging fruit that we could go and look at straight away. The image on the right is the Muscovite reflectance that came out of the early 2000s HIMAP survey that was done over the area, and that's showing those prospects again. It's also showing some other areas further up here that were quite of interest to us. And the blue rose area in this image here, where we've got porphyry and skarn mineralisation, that area doesn't show up in the Sentinel imagery, but what we were seeing was shedding of some of those elements of minerals of interest into the creeks. So it's really showing that even though you've got a thin layer of cover, some of this spectral work can still be valuable. One of the key bits of work that we've completed over the year in progressing our porphyry story has been a review of the high logger data on SARIG. So this work was completed by Georgina Gordon, and she's done an excellent job of compiling and interpreting the data to add confidence so that when we get out there and start drilling, that we're going to maximise our chance of exploration success by drilling in the places of highest potential. So looking at the Anabama Porphyry Province, so we're looking at the Anabama granite, which is this area here, and the Anabama granite was post-Delamerian granitic emplacement, and at the end of the granitic emplacement we're seeing these fertile porphyry fluids being emplaced. And the work done by Wei Hong in his 2023 and 2024 papers have been really informative for us in our understanding of the system. And that work was really highlighting that the porphyry fluids were hydrous, oxidised and sulphur rich, and they were plotting in fertile magma categories. So we're really excited about the validation of what we see as some really, really good prospects. So going into a little bit more detail on some of our specific prospects, we've got the Blue Rose Porphyry Skarn. We really like this prospect because our skarn mineralisation, we've got some really phenomenal repeatable grades of copper and gold in that system, and that skarn mineralisation is just to the east of this porphyry magnetic low. The image here, we're seeing some IP lines that had been completed that are basically, you've got a chargeability anomaly that's basically interpreted to be a bit of a donut around that magnetic low that we think is a really good porphyry target for our first stage of drilling. And this is in addition to some of the work that was completed by Georgina on this diamond hole here that was basically indicating that we had near-miss spectral imagery that really adds to our excitement about this prospect. Going down to Anabama Hill, this was one of the main prospects that was worked on by Wei Hong with his work. So this elevated the where we sort of looked at this prospect, and what we were seeing is from something sort of first drilled in the 1970s, not a lot of work has been done since, but the work that he did that's showing that this is a fertile magma really elevates what we see as potential. And there is evidence of grades through this porphyry area that's basically highlighting to us that this breccia zone here that's been mapped and has anomalous copper and molybdenum values is where we want to be looking. Going to our next prospect to the south at Netley Hill. So Netley Hill is a little bit deeper in the system. Instead of seeing more, we're seeing more potassic alteration rather than that white mica alteration in that system and a little bit more molybdenum, which sort of says to us we're probably a little bit deeper. What really has stood out for Netley Hill to us and to other people has been you've got a 3 billion tonne chargeability anomaly, and we're interpreting that chargeability anomaly is likely a pyrite alteration halo around a mineralised core. So this is what we're sort of looking at as our mineralised core target, with the diamond drilling that was done in the past showing that we've got mineralisation and alteration there that does really make that a pretty good target. And the targets that we're talking about now have been, we've gone out and done our cultural heritage clearance, so we're basically on the pathway to getting out there to drill. Finally, I'd like to just talk about some of the exploration that we've done this year. So using the SARIG Max DH layers, we basically used that as a bit of a screen, and we identified that Dodd Hill had high gold grades in drilling that we hadn't really considered before, and we liked this target for its strata-bound gold potential. To test Dodd Hill, we went out and completed a channel chip sampling program with some of the example of the chips over here, and we wanted to test that strata-bound versus vein-hosted gold model, and what we found was that we had a bit of both, which, you know, it's pretty good. So on the left-hand side here, we've got some pyritic sandstone, some gossinous material, and then that quartz vein there with some hematite also was carrying grade, and these are all within 100 metres of one another. So it sort of gave us a bit more confidence that if we have some multiple bits of gold there, that it could add to the economic potential of this prospect. On that Cox sandstone Tarkawi siltstone contact that Dodd Hill is sitting on, Hamelin Gully's got about 50 line kilometres of that contact that we have to test. 50 kilometres is obviously a lot to assess on the ground, so we really need to find ways to identify the areas of greatest potential to make sure that we're not spending money unnecessarily. And I think that what has really been highlighted through the work in the gold area for us has been that a lot of the gold projects across the Nackara Arc sort of seem like a little bit sort of back pocket. They're pretty small, and people haven't had the opportunity to sort of systematically explore the existing gold fields and the areas that might be repeats that could have a lot of potential. So the next steps for Hamelin Gully is basically we've got these walk-up drill targets that we're ready to go out and progress across the area. We've got good relationships with the landholders that are helping facilitate that work, and yeah, we're really excited about helping contribute to obviously the wealth of South Australia and the depletion of copper as it goes forward. Thanks very much.